With the second set of lyrical that just came out, obviously we got more lyrical support for every archetype that existed in set 1 with 2 more ride lines. And of course my main ride line was the Alestiel deck because I like the angels and I love the concept of switching between black and white. So here we are. This is my set 2 updated Black Wing Alestiel deck because Black Wings actually got really good support in set 2. The first set did not really offer that much compared to White Wings, but set 2 offered really cool Black Wing support. Although, at the same time, it actually made Dual Wings a lot more consistent as well, so you could actually build a Dual Wing variant of the deck. But I focused a little more on the Black Wing aspect because of how many extra attacks you can do. Hence why I stick with Black Wing Alestiel instead of doing a Dual Wing Celestial. Dual Wing Celestial, you might be focused a little more on the White Wing aspect, and if you play more White Wings, you are going to be focusing more on the crits because of that one grade 1, but Black Wing Alestiel focuses on negatively impacting your opponent. And with some of the new support cards, you just got more extra attacks, especially from the back row, and shrinking down your opponent's power even more. And with the new grade 2, which also has a Black Wing ability, consistency for Dual Wings has been so much easier, so if you want, you can go for Dual Wings. But this is my version, so I'm playing Black Wings. But on that, let's begin. Ride deck hasn't really changed, of course, with the grade 0 Alestiel, and then we go to grade 1 Alestiel, where on place you bind the top card of your deck. If it's on White Wing state, meaning if you have only odd grades in your bind zone, which so you want to keep it only one card in your bind zone obviously. Next turn when you perform your regular ride from your ride deck, you can Soul Blast 1 instead of discarding a card. In the Black Wing state, your opponent cannot attack this card with grade 1s or less. Obviously, going first is good with this because it doesn't matter which result you get. But going second, obviously you want to be White Wings. And into the grade 2 Alestiel, where on place you put the bind card to the bottom of the deck to bind the top card. And then after that, you of course have the White Wings where you can counterblast 1 once per turn to give it a crit. Or in Black Wing state where it's a continuous ability where your opponent cannot card with trigger units for this attack. Obviously White Wings is better for this. And then we go to Archangel Twin Wings Alestiel, where each turn it is mandatory for you to put the bind card to your hand so you get a free plus every turn, and then bind the top card of your deck. And then for your White Wing state, you get 5k1 crit. Black Wing state, all your opponent's units get minus 5k. Keep that in mind because you will get your Dual Wing state quite often now with this consistent support, especially with the grade 3 of the previous set. You're going to get the 5k1 crit pretty often. Your main focus is still going to be minus 5k on your opponent because this is a Black Wing deck. If you're playing the White Wing deck, obviously the 5k1 crit, but both do come up pretty often now. And now to the main deck. For Persona Ride, obviously run your other 3 copies. And into one of your key cards to get your Dual Wings is Archangel. Because Archangel, when your grade 3 is placed on Vanguard, you can bind this card and draw a card. This will trigger the second skill where when it's bound, your Dual Wing state activates, meaning White and Black Wing skills can both activate in the same turn. That'll be very important, and thanks to the new grade 2, you could just keep this in hand and just bind this to trigger that skill. And yeah, that's why you run this at 4, because it gives you your Dual Wing state, which will give you full power right off the bat. The new grade 2 makes it very consistent. So you really want to get at least 1 copy of this card in your hand as soon as you can, just for your Dual Wing state. And then, because this is a Black Wing deck, we're not really going to be running that other grade 3, but speaking of which of the grade 2, you obviously have to run this new grade 2 Famiel. This is the card that will give you full on consistency on your wing state. Because the skill is, on place, you can Soul Blast 1, choose a card from your bind zone, put it to your hand, and then bind a card from your hand. This, with Archangel, will give you Dual Wing state so much more consistent because just on place, you can correct your wing state that you want. And if this card is in hand, Dual Wing state very consistently. This is why you run this card at 4, is mainly because of the first skill. Whether it's White or Black Wings, this card increases the consistency so much for your wing state just because of this first skill, because you get to choose what card that you want to buy. That is very important. But it has a second skill where it's a Black Wing skill where you can counterblast 1 and make your opponent loses 5k power on their Vanguard. Yeah, considering that you already minus your opponent 5k with your grade 3, you're going to make them to 3k base. That is going to hurt a lot. Especially now with a certain grade 2, we got a back row attacker. I love that. And you will use that skill quite often because the Black Wing deck doesn't focus too much on counterblast compared to the White Wing deck. Now we do have a new White Wing grade 3 that could put itself in soul, hence why you could still play this as dual wings. So there is that, but since it's a Black Wing deck and you're not counterblasting much, you can actually use that skill quite often. When I tried this playing as a dual wing deck, the counterblast was a little heavy, let's just say. Next to pretty much your main finisher grade 2 for your Black Wing deck, it's Burial. So on place you can Soul Blast 3, not too much of an issue, you're going to use this probably twice a game because you do Soul Charge with Black Wings and Black Wings focus a little more on Soul. For every 2 even grades on the field, you choose one of your opponent's units and it gets minus 5k power. So you can choose up to 2 units because your Vanguard is grade 3, so unfortunately you're not going to get that. There is a grade 1 that requires 3 odd grades, but odd grades is a little easier when it comes to field setup compared to the even grades because back row weird up, but we have some new cards to fix that. But anyway, to the skill, choose your opponent's units for every 2 even grade units on your field, and it gets minus 5k. And if any of your opponent's units reaches 0, they go to the bottom of the deck. Your grade 3 Alestiel ready shrinks it down by 5k for all their units. Now, if you choose more units with this, like 2 of your opponent's rear guards that are basically grade 2s or less usually, you can probably send 2 or 3 cards to the bottom of the deck. And yes, I have done that a few times. And depending on the deck, your opponent will sometimes have grade 0s on the field, so you don't even need to choose those and they just go to the bottom of the deck as well. This is basically the big finisher for Black Wings, kind of, not really, but it's basically one of your key cards. And then to a new Black Wing card, which makes this deck a lot more fun, Pladial. So, this card can attack in the back row in Black Wing state on your opponent's grade 3 Vanguard. Considering that you're already shrinking down your opponent's power, they will be at least 8k. Shrink it down even more? Yeah, that's going to be nasty. Especially you have 3 of these in the back row. That is 6 attacks right there. One of the reasons why I like Black Wings a little more from set 2 because of this card. 6 attacks on your opponent's 3k unit most likely, and sometimes even -3. Yeah, why not? And then to the next grade 2, which is basically a tech card, Charmiel, where on place you can counterblast 1, Soul Charge 1. This is one of your Soul Charge cards. Choose one of your opponent's units, and it cannot be stood for the next turn. And of course, this is Black Wings. Counterblast is pretty open for this deck, so I just run it. You could run the grade 2 that can give boost and Soul Charge for free, but that's only for 1 turn, by the way, because that's on place. But just having an extra option to screw over your opponent is always really nice. And the Soul does help, and you don't really use Counterblast too often for this deck. Next, Shadio. This is basically a backup Black Wing fix card because you can Counterblast 1, put this as Soul Draw card, choose one of your cards in the bind zone, and increase its grade by 1. So if you accidentally bind the wrong card and you don't have your Famio ready, this is basically your backup to just crack your wings. So you do have that. And then it has the second skill where in Black Wing state, this card cannot be attacked or be chosen by your opponent's card ability. And yeah, that's pretty good protection right there. And being 8k isn't bad either because your opponent's going to be 8k base if you're in Black Wing state all the time. So that doesn't really matter either. This is really here as a backup to fix your stuff, but considering that Black Wings have more consistency in getting their wings due to trigger units by default being 16 grade 0s, you will most likely not use this too often, but it is there if you need it, and dual wings is more likely to happen because of Famio. So that's it for the grade 2s. To the grade 1, it's just PGs. And then to the last non-trigger unit, I run the new Mariel. So Mariel is a grade 0, which means it could be a booster. That's why I run this. And at the end of the battle that this card boosts in Black Wing state, it goes back to your hand, which is very nice because you won't get your Planiel all the time, so you might need a booster sometimes, and this is basically just another way to get stuff in your back row, and this is your only booster available for Black Wings technically right now, so you run this at 4. And being a 6k boost doesn't really help too much sometimes, but it does change up some numbers sometimes, being a booster and all, so it is there. But usually I use this to boost the Vanguard because that does actually change the number. But to the grade 2s, usually no. But usually I use this just to boost the Vanguard because that does change the number, and just being able to bounce this back to your hand to just clear up your board for more stuff is always really nice, especially for that grade 2 that could just attack from the back row. So it does help for being a grade 0 booster. So that's it for the non-trigger units. To the trigger units, over trigger, obvious, and I choose the Angel theme for obvious reasons. Obviously, 8 crits for this one, because you're going to be hitting your opponent hard with your opponent's low power. Front, draw power, you don't really need it too much considering that you're getting a free card every turn with Archangel of Black Wing Alestiel. And finally, 4 heals. So that's it for my Black Wing Alestiel deck for set 2. What do you guys think of it? What other changes would you guys think I should make, or what other suggestions that I should add in? Honestly though, with all these new cards for Black Wings, there is good amount of playtesting. There's 3 variants, of course, for Alestiel that you could build: Dual Wings, White Wings, and of course the Black Wings I just showed you. Honestly though, I like the Black Wings a little more because of the curse on your opponent, and also the new back row attacker just improved the deck so much with the new grade 0 booster, because more even grades really help out. And also I like Black Wings for more consistency because by default you have to run the 16 triggers, which are all grade 0s, and that makes them even grades by default. And that's another reason why I kind of prefer running Black Wings over White Wings, but I have tried Dual Wing variant, and the Dual Wing variant works out pretty well as well. So depending on your personal preference, you could play your Dual Wing variant, which I probably will try again. The White Wing variant, which I'll probably go try again as well. But I still prefer the Black Wings because of the extra attacks. Now, White Wings focus more on the crits on your opponent because of that grade 1. But I do struggle to get a cool full field sometimes with the White Wings, although that new grade 1 that Superior calls a White Wing does help out a lot. Sometimes you do struggle to get extra White Wings in your drop zone for that grade 1. But overall, Alestiel is just a cool concept. I just like the wing variant of the deck, giving you 3 different options by default. I get that this deck was probably intended for Dual Wings, hence why now we got a new grade 2 that increased the consistency of this card getting bind for Dual Wings. And yes, I have got that very consistently. As long as you get this in your hand as soon as you can, the Akio, and you got a Fermiel ready, you will get Dual Wings pretty consistently. But in that's really all I have to say. The deck didn't completely change too much, but there was good support for Lyrical 2 for this deck, and Black Wings definitely did get a good change. And other than that, time to say goodbye.